Question number 9, Catherine Delahunty.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Kia koutou katoa. To the Minister for the Environment, does he agree with his government that it is unrealistic for New Zealand's rivers to be swimmable all the time?
Can I just ask the member to start again? There's a couple of quite important words that she's missed out as she's read the question.
Okay, I've got a blocked ear and I can't hear very well.
Just read the question again, please.
I will. To the Minister, does he agree with his government's reported comments that it is unrealistic for New Zealand's rivers to be swimmable all the time? And does he think that represents an acceptable and aspirational vision for New Zealand's waterways?
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
The government is committed to improving water quality and the swimmability of our rivers, but a legal requirement on councils for all rivers to be swimmable all of the time is unrealistic. It's unrealistic because nearly all of our rivers, even those in pristine national parks, breach WHO swimming guidelines during flood events. My family and I are regular swimmers, but we don't expect to swim in the Maitai or the Pelorus or Lee rivers when in wild floods. It's also unrealistic because some rivers are naturally unswimmable in volcanic areas and others from contamination from bird colonies. We are a government of practical and not purist environmentalists.
Supplementary
question, Catherine Delahunty.
What is the point of all his freshwater initiatives if the standards are so weak no river has to be swimmable but only safe for wading or boating?
Mr Speaker,
the Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
What the national standard said. What the national says is regardless of where the river is, that is the bottom line standard. And then regional councils have the opportunity to determine what are the appropriate standards in different areas. I point out, for instance, our most polluted water bodies are in a city like Auckland. A single stream in Auckland, if we were to impose the swimmability standard, would cost about $150 million, despite the fact that nobody's ever swum in that particular river ever, and I'm not sure that sort of imposition on the ratepayer is sensible and practical. We are about improving water standards, we are about improving swimmability, but we're not into pure bottom lines that won't work for New Zealand.
Supplementary question, Nook Karako.
Kia ora te mana whakawā. What is the government doing to ensure there is greater disclosure and better information on the swimmability of our lakes and rivers?
Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
The government is committed to improving swimmability of our rivers and lakes, and part of this is improving the quality of the information that is disclosed by our regional councils. One of the problems we have at the moment is some regional councils only measure water quality in areas where it's a problem. And that leads to parties like the Greens grabbing those and pretending they're representative. Other areas actually measure water quality in those areas where there aren't problems. The new Environment Reporting Act is actually going to require a consistency of that information, and that will enable us to have better information and put pressure on those councils that are not performing. What we've also done is funded the Lawa website. And what that does is provide up-to-date information all the time for lakes and rivers about those that are swimmable, so that we also put pressure on communities to get on and clean up their rivers.
Supplementary question, Catherine Delahunty.
When he said some rivers were unsafe for swimming in the pre-human era, how does that justify his government's current weak water standard?
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Because it would be ridiculous for the Parliament and the government to say, for instance, in the central North Island, that the Whangaho River must be swimmable when, because of volcanic ash, the levels of chemicals in that river. Is the Green Party and the Labour Party really saying that there must be a legal requirement on that council? Or what about the water bodies where there are bird colonies that result in fetal coliform counts that make those water bodies unswimmable? Is the Green Party and the Labour Party saying they want to have a massive bird shoot of native birds so that those water bodies are swimmable? That is where parties opposite are impractical.
Order. I thank the Minister for his answer. Supplementary question, Catherine Delahunty.
As a swimmer, who says he, quote, will be taking my family to swim in wonderful water bodies like the Lee River, unquote. What does he say to those whose local rivers aren't swimmable?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr.
Mr.
Smith.
Speaker, yes, it is true that I regularly take my family for swims in rivers, have done so for more than 20 years in Nelson, and I'd also draw that member's attention to all of those favourite water bodies in Nelson have not seen any decline in water standards over that era. It's not heavily reported because there are no problems. And what I would challenge the Green Party is, rather than quoting just water quality standards in those areas where it's measured, where there are problems, that they're actually honest with New Zealanders that the vast bulk of our lakes and rivers have ample spots where Kiwis can get out and enjoy a swim.
Oh, point of order, Catherine Delahunty.
Thank you. Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I'm very interested in his rhetoric.
Order, can I have the point of order, please?
I asked the Minister what he says to people whose local rivers are not swimmable. He did not answer. He told us a lot about Nelson.
I invite the member to go back and look more carefully at her question. That wasn't the question. There was talk about a swimmer in the Lee River, etc. As far as I'm concerned, the question has been addressed by the Minister. Question number 10.